There you go. Here, stand back up. Stand back. There you go. That's it. Now we can see your lovely face.
And here's your microphone.
Here, I'll be the lovely assistant. Or at least the assistant.
You can be bad. Okay. Put this one here for now. This is a piece of white birch burl that I brought down from Rhode Island. I've been here in Pennsylvania now going on 8 years. So it's been sitting in a rough turn condition since I left Rhode Island, at least. I had to keep track of this piece of bark because it fell out. And when I went to finish, I couldn't return it true, so I had to sand what was there. So I filled in the cracks with coffee grounds and super glue. But that's that piece.
You said that this has been sitting in that condition before, and you just refinished it recently?
Yeah, just within the last year. This is a piece of cherry. This is local. Since I went to Hawaii probably 10, 15 years ago and became enamored by the legacy of bowls, wooden bowls that they have. And I made a bunch of sketches, went to the local museum to see the authentic, real calabashes. And this is an atypical material, but it's a standard calabash bowl. They're used to hold food. This couldn't be more local than Delp Road. This cherry.
Is that part of my tree?
It's part of your tree. And no, you can't have it back.
Thank
What kind of finish was on that?
For these two bowls, the first one was Watco. This one is Waterlocks. I think Ron Sheehan uses Watco. Is that right?
Waterlocks, likes
Mhm.
Waterlocks.
He likes Waterlocks.
He's on board there.
I like Watco.
I like Watco too.
Yes.
Perhaps
Danish?
Yeah.
Thank you, Angela.
For those of you in the room here, if you're asked a question in the room, could you repeat it into the mic so people on the screen can actually hear it?
Right.
So we have.
Or Matt can do that part.
You got it. I got you.
Okay. These two smaller bowls are wood I brought back from Bangladesh with me. It's jackfruit wood. Looks a lot like Osage orange. The black was done by holding up another piece of wood on this while it was on the lathe and running. So it's burned on. This black was dyed. Again, the same kind of jackfruit wood. That's about the color it'll stay. It might get a little bit darker. This is walnut with, you buy the banding. I'll be right back. Let's see, can you see the banding on that?
Yeah.
Anyway, it has very small checkered squares on it, which makes the banding very fragile. So how do you bend that around a bowl, a smaller circumference like this? Well, it was something I learned from Steve Latta, who is a teacher at Thaddeus Stevens. I immersed the banding in water, and then I plugged in this wood burner, and you roll the banding across the hot round part here, and that helps the banding to, it puts a curve in the banding.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I guess I should be handing these on down.
What is that?
This is walnut. And I have some more bowls over
Critic at home.
there.
You've been busy, Steve.
Yeah.
I guess he has.
I was visiting Doug's gallery, and the, what do you call it? I guess the owner of the gallery was thrilled with accidents of nature that look beautiful. So I couldn't do much with this. It's the wormholes are there. It's all out there for you to see. So this, I think, was cherry.
Are you talking about the Keystone with
The one near the Central Market.
Cross Keys Wood? Is downtown. It's on Queen. It's downtown Lancaster.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I didn't know what to do with this for quite a while. I had it sitting in my shop in kind of a raw stage. Until somebody came through and really liked it. And her husband noticed that she really liked it. So he bought it from me, and I'm just keeping it until, I guess, Christmas. Again, this type of thing, you make two bowls, one this way and one this way, and then just cut out the feet.
Is that elm?
This would be ash.
Another ash bowl before.
This is black locust, a rare animal that it often splits on you. Actually, I've had more trouble with honey locust splitting. But this is black locust, and I had it in a rough turn shape for a while. And when it shrunk, there was about a 2 millimeter gap between the knot and the regular wood. It was still in its rough shape, so it was maybe 2 inches thick on the wall. But I was afraid that if I turned it anymore without doing something to keep the knot in, that the knot would just fall out. So what you see here, this is the black, is just a 2-part epoxy with some dye in the epoxy. It was the easiest fix. Trans tint was the dye I used for this. This was a black, and then this was a dark walnut dye. And I felt I needed to put something in there because, of course, it was a crack across the rim, and I didn't want that to get any wider.
And what did you think about turning black locust?
Yeah, green stage was fine once it dried out. Actually, the sanding was the worst part. I used a ton of sandpaper.
There's a reason why people don't turn much black locust.
But it's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
So far, this is just one coat. All my bowls are Minwax antique. What is it? Antique oil finish. Antique, yeah. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Stephen.
Hey, Doug,
Yeah.
can you add a little bit to your comment on that? Is it an extremely hard wood? Is it just a grainy, soft, hard combination? What's
I turned a bunch of black locust and it felt really fibrous. I mean, it really fibrous and hard, so that, you know, and it's got an open grain, so it tends to chip really badly. Sorry.
okay?
Sorry,
Right.
it tends to chip really badly, and so, you know, unless you get it green, and then when it's done, sanding it, as he says, was said, is just a real tough job. It just, thanks.
Great, thank you.
Hey, I'm Mike. I'm a new member. Been turning for a little while. After last month, this is my take on a fruit bowl. You do it just like it looks like. You turn a bowl and you drill a bunch of holes in it. Couple things I learned is when you drill the holes, buy quality hole saws. The cheap set you get from Harbor Freight or online real cheap, they don't give you a clean hole. Get a Lennox or Milwaukee, you get a much nicer hole. You don't have to sand the insides. Learned something interesting. I left the wall thick because I figured there's going to be a little bit of tear out on the inside. I kept the tenon on the bottom and I returned the inside, and with all these holes, all the chips fly up in the air. It's like turning in a snow globe. So that was different. Then the outside is just textured with a needle scaler and painted. Like to do a lot of embellishments on my bowls just because it's fun.
Say that again. What did you texture it with? I'm not familiar.
It's called a needle scaler. It's used for cleaning metal, like knocking a welding scale or rust and stuff off of metal. It's an air tool. They sell them auto shops. It basically has a bunch of pins, actually rods that come out the end, and you hold it against the wood and you turn it on and it just beats the hell out of it.
It's like a vibrating.
Yes,
Yeah.
beats the crap out of it. It's much quicker than using one of them little engravers where you go with a little point that goes, "Ee." This thing, it's really fast, noisy. You need ear protection, but it's a great way to texture a bowl.
And unlike circle cutters, you can buy one at Harbor Freight and it will work, and they're
Okay.
significantly cheaper. So if
Yeah.
you want to get one, buy one at Harbor Freight.
Yes, Thomas pointed out that you can buy the Harbor Freight needle scaler and those work. Another bowl I brought, this is my, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
When you drilled that, did you drill from both sides?
The question was, did I drill from both sides? No, you have to drill from one side because you can't get the tool, the drill in the bowl to drill from the inside out. That's why I knew there was going to be tear out where it came through. So I left the wall thick and had to return it. Another question, yes.
The needle scaler you run at how many PSI? At what speed?
I don't know.
Till it bangs the hell out.
Whatever, it makes a lot of, I don't think it's very critical. It just works. The question was that, is there a speed to or PSI to run the needle scaler? And it's just whatever the compressor was set at, probably 80 PSI maybe. Another bowl I brought, this is one of my multi-axis bowls. This one is actually twisted axis instead of just being offset in one direction. Now also twisted the centers. So the shape is completely turned. It's not carved or cut or anything like that. It's straight off the lathe. And then Joan Leck did the chip carving for me. Kind of nice. So I like this one.
That one new, right?
Yes.
That one fairly new.
No, that's an older one, but it's the only twisted bowl I had left.
What kind of wood was that with the chip carving?
I believe it's maple.
Oh,
Yeah, that's maple. And then last, these are what I'm turning now, my star bowls. This again is a multi-axis turning. It's not carved in any way. It's just straight off the lathe. And this one's just sanded and ready for embellishment.
Say,
Oh, that one's elm.
multi-axis turning. So
Yes.
Could you give us an idea? Is that a 6-axis then? What you?
That one's actually 5-axis. Yes.
So,
I would like to see a demonstration sometime.
Yeah,
Mhm.
can you demonstrate that way?
Sure, I can. Absolutely.
That's all. We'll hold you to
Absolutely.
that. That'd be great.
Maybe next month.
Yeah.
If I could just have that back real quick and I'll give a quick, everybody's wondering, how's it turned? How's it turned?
Hold the
Can you
mic.
hold that? Actually, you make two bowls together and it's turned this way. The two of them together. So it's cut this way and then you spin it and it's cut and you spin it and it's cut. So that's how you get the multi-axis. I've done up to 17 axis. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. And then you have a matched set when you're done.
You have a match set. You have one for you and one for your best friend, and she likes to embellish Art. Sorry, Thomas, you got to move up on the friend list. You know, you're almost there. You're that close.
You start bumping off the other friends.
One of those 2-axis bowls is what I'll get, right?
Hey, Don.
Yep, my name is Don and an almost new member. I was here at one other meeting. Instead of bringing something which is an oh wow bowl, this is a bowl that I had turned maybe 2 years ago, and a couple of observations and have some questions that you might help me answer. Saturday, I was standing about 10 feet away from this bowl. It was up on end like that. And for the first time, even when I was making it, I didn't recognize that it has the ripple patterns going 2 directions. One set going this way and the other set going this way at right angles to it. And I'm curious as to how rare that is and how that happens, and why it took me 2 years to notice it. So it's a miracle, I guess.
I
Yeah.
thought you were gonna say that you saw Mary the Virgin in it for the first time. I'm looking, I'm not seeing the Virgin Mary.
I'll be attuned to that. The other question, with some dismay, I noticed that there are dark markings and then light markings. And I suspect that has to do with sanding sealer that's on some spots and not in other spots, or maybe I tried to sand it and refinish it and it didn't quite.
Do you use
Good.
oil on it?
At this stage of the game, I was using primarily sanding sealer and polyurethane.
Because sometimes the end grain, like the oil will absorb the end grain and then you go put a finish on it and so you got that dark, but just wondered if.
Yeah.
What is the wood?
Walnut,
That's one.
yeah. Yeah, a friend gave me a big chunk. It was so big, I couldn't lift it myself, but he's a woodcutter, a bruiser of a guy.
It looks like a page sunken in the
Can I just make another possible comment? And that is, I've found that sometimes if I ride the bevel too hard, it bruises the wood underneath it. And so sometimes you can get these dark spots when you think you don't have any, and they won't sand out. It takes a really light touch to get to clean it up afterwards. But
I think that's what's going on. That's been my experience too. The wood is bruised.
Would you guys say that cross grain is from compression there?
Not the other part.
I'm sorry?
You, in essence, burnish lines. through
Oh,
it,
okay.
right? That's what they're suggesting.
Yeah.
Rubbing bevel hard is going to create friction, and that actually sort of has a light burning or burnishing effect.
Mhm.
Okay, now nobody on screen is hearing you say that,
That's
so.
okay.
So if I wanted to fix it, I'd start all over,
You have to
Turn-
turn it again.
turning it down
Yeah.
to wood,
I
to
don't
bare
know,
wood.
Depending on how hard you press, you might have to go a ways to get rid of that, but you're only
Mm-hmm.
going to see it once you finish it again.
Mm.
So you'll turn it down, you'll finish it again, you'll see it, you'll turn it down, you'll finish it again, you won't see it, and then you'll be done.
My wife would be happy because she says my bowls are too thick.
What does she know?
She's my chief
Critic?
critic, yes.
With the grain, it's my understanding that as larger trees grow, a lot of those ripples are formed by like the compression and gravity as it weighs down. If you look at the base of trees, we have sycamores that show it really well, where it starts to ripple. It's like sagging wrinkles. You know, we all get older and everything sags. So that's my understanding of how those
Yeah,
work.
or where a branch has been weighed down.
Yeah.
Or, it's so heavy that it's falling over, compressing the wood on this side,
Mhm.
and you've got the grain and you've got the compression.
Mhm.
How sharp is your tool when you did this?
2 years ago, I have no idea.
You have an idea today, though. We'll see what's in it anyway.
No ideas whatsoever.
Hi, everyone. I'm Thomas. This is a bowl I think I brought last time. I was just getting it going. I'm not a bowl turner, so it's really like maybe the third bowl that I've made. And it is sycamore and it has this oval ring pattern in it. And I turned it wet really thin and then it did dry. So it became an oval. And so that became sort of the theme of the bowl. These ovals are now cut out. And at first I was thinking I was going to cut them all out, both inside and outside. And then I was up at Mike Kay's last month and Mike said, you have to leave some not cut out. And I tried that and I didn't like them, but I did like only cutting the center of the circle. So it's in quadrants. So there's basically a quarter of the full ovals cut out and then a quarter of it that's just not fully cut out and then a quarter that's fully cut out and on and on. If you spin it, you can keep going and saying that over and over if you just keep moving the bowl. It only has Yorkshire grit all over it. It's cleaned up now, so it'll feel nice and smooth, but I obviously couldn't polish it, couldn't spin it in any way with a cloth against it because all these ovals would just rip to shreds and there'd be no bowl left. So I did it all by hand. I cut it all with a couple of with a ram tool with a couple of different kinds of bits. I tried a bunch of stuff. I've only done a couple of piercings, so this is really the first. I thought this month was thin skinned. I thought that was the theme. So I have thin skin two ways, as we say. It's a fairly thin bowl, and then the ovals are also fairly thin. So it's pretty sturdy. There's only one place where I didn't leave enough attached. Some ovals are attached, some ovals are not attached. I thought that was cool. So there's only one place where there's so much detached and they're so thin that it's a little weak. But I'm fairly happy with it. I think it looks neat. You can't put rice in it, but you could put fruit in it, or you could, I don't know, you could probably put big coins in it. I don't know, do whatever you want with it.
What do you mean by detached and undetached? Because
So there are some ovals that are attached on each point, and there are some ovals that are only attached on 2 points, and there are some that are on 3 points. And so there's a place in here, and you could find it if you really looked hard, where it's the structure is maybe a little bendy, but I don't think there's any weakness. I mean, I think I can press pretty hard. If you're pressing harder than this on this bowl, which I'm going to charge you $300 for, you're dumb anyway. And I'm going to charge you that for it, and I'm going to make about $2 an hour because the piercing on here was fairly complex and I was trying to be fairly precise. I don't think it's awesome. But I think I'd have to do another 100 of these before it was really, really good. And that seems like I don't have that much life left. So it took me
Next week.
a couple of good weeks. What am I going to do next week? And it did take me, I would say about 24 hours to pierce it. I don't know whether that's just an experience or whether, that's just the time it takes to be careful. You're going to see some ovals on here if you look close that aren't really ovals. They have a couple of flat sides. And that's just where I got over aggressive. And then there was nothing I could do. Once you remove the wood, it's gone, right? I guess I could stuff coffee grounds and super glue in there. But I'm pretty happy with it. I think most of them are ovular. And I tried to do this thing where I took that idea of the sort of oval from the 70s. Like if Laugh-In had oval designs, how they'd be the outside would be an oval and the inside would be less of an oval. So the ends are wide. I sort of really tried to stylize some of it. I'm not sure I was terribly successful at it, but it was fun to do. And, I must have had time on my hands. So
can I just make a comment?
you may.
I would say that you should never say your work isn't up to scratch. That's the job of the customer.
But are you buying it?
Well, I think it was.
Thank you. I didn't think anyone here would buy it though. So
Comments like that.
Nobody's out there.
And John Kurth has a question, so we'll get to him in a minute.
I'll make a comment, and that is never. Yeah, whose dog? No, I know you make the comments on your own bowl and everything like that, but I look at that, and I know a lot of people, I've seen it in galleries. I've seen artists come through, they're going to pick up that bowl and they're not going to see any of the defects that you saw. And they're going to say, wow. So I'm just saying that, I think it was Andrew Lloyd Wright, the architect, when asked so
Andrew Lloyd Webber, the
Ar-
composer.
no, the architect was asked,
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Frank Lloyd Wright, the architect was asked what his best project was, and he said the next one.
Right.
So,
But he was also always his worst critic and pointed out all of the flaws in his buildings. Right.
So-
And that's what I do. I feel like
So-
in order to grow, I need to be able to look at it objectively and go, well.
and I
it could be
agree with you,
better. Yeah,
because
yeah.
I
But
do that
think
every
it's
time.
I'm glad you like it. I like it too, even
Yeah.
with its flaws. I think it's
Yeah.
fairly successful. So
And I've been criticized for criticizing my own stuff too. So
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
I'm coming back and I'm just saying that, you do
yeah.
a great job, and
Thank
your self-criticism is actually makes you progress into new levels.
Correct. And when I start selling stuff, I won't make nasty comments about my own work, but until that point, I feel like we're here to learn, right? And so if I
Absolutely.
can show my own, like, here's what I struggle with, here's what
Yeah.
worked out for me, here's what didn't, you might notice it, like you'll see some flat spots. That's because I was
Remy.
critical. So it's
Yeah.
less like being critical of the work and more like, what did I learn from the process?
Sure.
And if that's helpful, then it is. And if not,
Yeah.
I'll just keep saying my work's awesome because I can do that.
Pardon?
Yeah, it is.
Anyway.
Yeah, someone else will criticize.
Junkers has a question. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, I noticed from here that when you held the bowl up, there was a more detailed section that came up to a less detailed. Did you start with larger ovals and get smaller, or did you start with smaller and then get larger?
No, so actually, if he shows it, there's ovals that are completed and then turn the bowl 45 degrees. There are ovals that are not completed. They're just the inner circle is cut.
Gotcha.
Okay. And I started with the ovals that were completed. Well, I started with 3 of the ovals that were completed. And then I just started drilling out all the inner circles because it was more fun and it was more progress. And I wasn't having to do all those tiny little triangles and make them all perfect. And then I looked at it and I was like, well, Michael Kays, I don't know if you guys know Michael, obviously probably one of the most famous local wood turners and carvers and woodworkers extraordinaire, was looking at it at Dave Hardy's Tuesday night meeting last month. And he said, yeah, you need to leave some of those uncut. And I tried that. So some blank spaces, some just empty space, right? In the bowl. And I just didn't like it. So then I did this stuff here where I didn't do the complete oval. I just cut out the inner circle and I really liked how that looked. And so it was sort of, this would be neat if it progressed from a more detailed thing to a little more obscure or abstract thing to a little more detailed thing. And that's how it was just design opportunity as it's sitting on the lathe, right?
That's
Or
amazing.
in my lap.
Yeah. I think Roy should use those to pass around for collections so that he can not have to worry about counting anything smaller than a silver dollar.
Yeah, your coins would fall out in your own lap and you'd feel like you gave and you didn't actually. Yeah.
You could also make the ones, you could make the ones that are partial start at the base, and as it rises up, they become more airy and filigree. Yeah, exactly.
That's a good idea. Maybe you should try that.
I don't think so.
What was the wood?
It's sycamore.
Thomas, thank you.
This is a mirror image.
I had some sycamore that I got at the Keystone auction. Keystone is the other club that Mike and I belong to, and we do an auction, wood auction every year. And I had 4 blanks from the same person. 2 were walnut and 2 were sycamore, and I turned a walnut one, and it turned into a funnel, and then I threw this on, and it turned into that. So yeah. And I'm not a bowl turner, but I like to give generously to my club. And so they were bowl blanks. And I was like, oh, I don't turn bowls, but the club needs, blah, blah, blah. So I bought them anyway. And this kind of thing is fun to do. It's fun to turn a bowl if you can do something with it. For me, a bowl that's just a bowl, just for me, there's only so much I can do with that shape or so much I can do creatively before it's just a skill challenge, like how little sanding do you have to do, sort of thing. And I always end up with one, I've only done a couple bowls, but I always end up with a shape that looks like a bowl. And so it's just not something I do. I do ornaments, I do well, you guys saw the first time I was here, I do I do some spiral work. I don't like to embellish too much. Like I wouldn't throw color on that. I really like wood. That's why I do it. But bowls aren't my thing. Hollow forms, that kind of stuff I do. But this was sort of, to me, this was like a hollow form in a bowl shape, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else for show and tell? No.
I made these 3 pens as samples, and I'm making a bunch of them for Turn for the Troops. These are just samples, and I'm looking for input. Which is nicer? Which one, as a serviceman serving overseas, would you rather get? And so I'll just pass these around and you can take a look at them. The other thing I do occasionally, I make pens mostly. I know, like Rodney Dangerfield, I get no respect. This is a jig I made some time ago. It's used for making Celtic or Celtic knot designs in spindle work. So depending upon what you're doing, you could do this with pepper mills, salt shakers, bottle stoppers, pens, and I've made a number of those. And I made this jig because it makes it very easy to make the pen, and you can pass that around also. It's heavy. It fits on my table saw, and it allows me to cut very precise inlays into any kind of blank. And this is 2 samples of blanks that I cut on that jig.
Hold them up to the camera
Oh.
first before they go around. So.
Okay, sorry. And so these are the cut blanks that I'm going to turn into pens at some point. These are the only 2 I have on hand right now. The other ones are all gone. But I've made several dozen of these. And so that is a Celtic knot jig, and it works very well. It allows you to cut very precise inlays, and you can do things like spirals around a jig. I wanted Barry to see it. That's why I brought it, but.
He may be on screen.
Oh, okay.
Design it, or was it on the internet?
That is where I designed the original version, and that is version 2. But I was working at a metal lathe one night, and I was cranking the lead screw, and I thought, I'll bet a lead screw would work really well for making precise thickness inlays and cuts into almost anything. And so that's version 2 of the jig. It's a little bit easier to adjust. And so.
Are you cutting all the way through that blank?
No.
Like, so
No,
you
I
don't
do
go
not.
all the way through. Okay.
It's easier.
I'll need them in there.
It's easier to leave about a 1/16 of an inch. That makes it much easier to align the inlays that you're going to cut.
So those are actually inlays that are wrapped in those slots rather than the typical cut your 45 and then put a piece of veneer in, glue it, and so on. Correct?
Yes, you can make like spiral inlays that go around but don't intersect.
Wow. Neat idea. I'd like to see that demoed sometime.
So I have done a demo of that for the Pen Turners group. I did that probably in February or March this year.
Do you know if it's been posted out there on YouTube? We can put it on our website.
No, I don't have a recording of it,
Okay.
but I could certainly do one. I'd have to do it from my shop though,
Okay.
but I could do it.
One more show and tell, I guess. I showed this at the coffee hour to those guys. For you guys, it's a redundant, but for those who weren't at the last coffee hour meeting, I made this bowl out of maple. It's Norway maple, Roy's maple, if anybody is keeping track. But what was interesting about this particular bowl was I finished it with just pure beeswax, just to see what it would look like. I'm participating as a sort of an actor at the Pennsylvania Ren Fair this year, and I'm allowed to use this for food. So I decided to try and do something with just a conventional finish, which is pure beeswax. So I just took a great hunk of beeswax, and with the bowl turning at about 1,000 RPM or so, stuck the beeswax onto the bowl, and then took a cloth and just let the friction heat it up and melt the whole thing. And it made a very quick and lovely finish. So I was pretty pleased with it. Anyway, an experiment. Smells like beeswax too.
It makes a nice finish, but you will get finger marks all over the bowl.
I figure after I've washed it about 5 times though from food.
But if you continue to re-beeswax it.
Oh yeah,
And burn it and really bear down, like if you have a
sure.
terry cloth or
Yeah.
something, and you really bear down on it, it will impregnate and it'll become harder and solider. And
Yeah.
it'll always smell wonderfully like beeswax.
Oh, I'll have to do
I'm
that.
sure the Zoom people could hear that.
I did.
Sorry.
I'm gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
You guys hear it?
Yes.
Okay, we're good then.
Okay.
Sorry. It's okay.
Anybody who's not mic'd
A little louder.
and didn't hear it, too bad. Okay, it was mentioned earlier that the monthly challenge was going thin. Did anybody do anything for that? Do you know?
Do we have any samples for thin skin?
Well, mine was supposed to be, but it looks like somebody did some.
This is mine.
Oh, that's you then.
Yeah. Well,
Who's that gonna go?
they're nesting, but I did do this is a while ago because this is August 2020. So this is last year. I made these out of cherry. I don't know if it shows up or not. But yeah, they're about 1/64 of an inch thick. I saw that a couple of years ago at the Lancaster symposium. A guy was showing how to do really thin with a scraper. Yeah, that was really cool. So I thought, well, I got to try it. I've been meaning to try a bigger one, but I haven't. So that's the next on the list to see if I can make a larger one. I think wet. Yeah, it's absolutely wet. It's you can see from the shape that it's not really round anymore. But I don't think it'd be round even if I turned it dry. But I needed the wetness in order to get the scraping down nicely. It was really fun. Anyway, I recommend everybody trying it. And
So you cut that to like 1/8 of an inch, then you just sand it?
no, I did not cut that to 1/8 of an inch and sand it. Not nice try. This is what happens when you miss it a couple of times with a scraper. But it's actually using a round nose scraper on a very high angle of attack. So and the other part is because it's on the lathe, you can hold it with your hand. And so even though you're scraping on the outside, I had a wet cloth on the outside, scraping on the inside to hold it. And people say, well, is it a possibility of injuring yourself? Well, I guess so, but it's so thin that if it pops apart, it's like confetti. At this point in time, it's really not, no matter what speed you're turning. So anyway, a lot of fun to do it once or twice, but it's one of these projects that once you've done it, what do you do with it? I mean,
It's full now, 'cause you can set the chopsticks right on the
well,
side.
this one, yeah, but I don't want to put a hole in the other one. Pardon?
You put it- That's it.
There you go. There you go. Put a hat. I think Bob Gockenauer made a hat, or a couple of hats, and that would be about right.
We'll do like 12 and they nest inside each other and it's an art piece like.
Okay. Well, I was actually thinking of I saw it somebody make a lampshade this way too. I thought it'd be interesting to try that, but anyway. I think that's it for show and tell for today. Does anybody on the screen or at home have any thin pieces that they want to talk about for the challenge of the month?